Every single one of us has an inner critic, but I think for those of us with ADHD, it can often be a lot worse. I think we've all been there where our mind is just on this continual loop of self-criticism, where we're replaying every single missed deadline, every impulsive decision, and every task that we haven't found the motivation to even get started on. Our inner critic is fueled by the unique challenges that come with ADHD and feeling like things are a lot harder for us, and from the distorted perception that we somehow fail more than neurotypical people. Many of us have also faced a lot of criticism for things that we really don't have much control over by people that don't really understand us or how our brain works. And unfortunately, we can start to internalize this to the point where we begin to criticize ourselves. And if we tune into this voice instead of tuning it out, we can start to feel like we are not enough, and it can lead us down this rabbit hole of gut-wrenching emotions. So today I want to talk about how we can learn to silence this inner voice, redirect our inner dialogue, and reclaim our confidence. But first, if you're new here, my name's Nina. I help people transform their lives through understanding their own psychology, and this is a struggle I know very well. So how do we do it? How do we conquer our inner critic? Well, the first thing that we need to do is to catch it in the act and start to be more mindful of our inner dialogue. So when we notice these negative thoughts, we do want to acknowledge them, but we want to end the conversation instead of letting these thoughts define us. For most of us, these are actually habitual thought patterns that probably started in childhood. They often show up as repetitive, intrusive, and self-deprecating narratives that constantly bombard our mind. But that still doesn't mean that we're stuck with them. So when we start to hear these internal criticisms, we need to ask ourselves, would I talk to a friend this way? And chances are, no, we would not. And at that point, we need to remind ourselves that we need to be speaking to ourselves with the same compassion and understanding as we would anyone else, and reframe, rewrite, and redirect. Please know that your negative self-talk is just a story that you're telling yourself, and that does not mean that the story is true. And something that we often forget is that we are the authors, so we do have the ability to go in and rewrite the narrative. So for example, if the thought that we're telling ourselves is, I'm such a mess, we can instead tell ourselves something like, I'm working on getting organized one step at a time. Or if we keep telling ourselves that we're never going to be able to finish a project, we can instead tell ourselves something like, I may need a break, but I'm going to get there. I will be able to make progress. So again, we really can control the narrative. It just takes a little bit of practice. And something that can help with this immensely is the ABC model that comes from cognitive behavioral therapy. And this is something that I recently made an entire video all about and how to use it to transform your negative thoughts. And I will absolutely put that down in the description box below, because this is a system that really can help us to completely rewire our brain. And another thing that's really helpful is to start to celebrate and cheer ourselves on for small wins. As we all know, we can get completely overwhelmed by long, involved tasks. But sometimes we forget that every single big goal is just made up of a lot of tiny little steps. So every little task completed, every moment of focus, every deadline met, all of these things need to be celebrated, because this is how we're going to start to build self-esteem and self-trust. So start acknowledging your progress, no matter how small it seems, because this helps us to prove to ourselves that we're not worthy of all of this self-criticism and that we're actually doing a lot better than we are giving ourselves credit for. But that being said, it can also be helpful to learn to embrace our imperfections. And this is something else that can be so important, because for many of us, our inner critic can actually lead to perfectionism. In fact, being a perfectionist is something that people with ADHD struggle with more than neurotypical people. And this is something that I have an entire video about as well that I will link down in the description box below. But the fact of the matter is that every single person makes mistakes as part of the human experience, no matter what type of brain we have. And that is fine, but don't let this this one little slip up give an opportunity for your inner critic to step in and make us feel horrible. Just learn from it, adjust your approach, and move on. Remember, ADHD does not have to define our self-worth. We are not our mistakes, we're not our missed deadlines or our scattered thoughts. We are powerful, creative, really resilient individuals that are able to do amazing things in really unique ways. So it really is time to ditch the inner critic, because this negative voice is doing nothing but drag us down and keep us from doing all the interesting things that we are fully capable of doing. So as always, I truly hope you found today's video to be helpful and insightful. If you did, please like it, share it, and definitely become a subscriber if you aren't one already. I would love it if you would stay connected. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I hope the rest of your day is extraordinary.